background, Australian Cybersecurity Centre created the ISM. They created the top 4, spawned from that, Central 8, based off the ISM, 700 controls, way too big for most organisations. So ACSC responds to organisations that have been breached in Australia, anyone that has an economic impact, and so through that response, they've learnt things, they've learnt lessons, what works in the real world, and they've distilled that down to 8 controls.
Yeah, it's the difference between allow list and block list, right? It used to be you have a block list of things that can't run, and obviously now we've migrated more to everything's blocked by default, but we have an allow list, an approved set of apps that can run in an organization. We've implemented with AppLocker, we've implemented with WDAC, and our experience is those work and they're valid tools, but there are purpose-built tools out there that make the whole management of application control far easier. Managed from a central location, you can deploy to Linux, Mac, Windows. You don't have to worry about any individual OS level complexities. Some of the other things we've seen are really quirky behavior with particular apps that run DLLs in weird locations in user space. Software updates frequently, file hashes change, things break. Trusted apps, trusted publishers is the way to go, the dedicated tool.
Let's jump into user application hardening, or UAH, intended to essentially reduce the likelihood of user actions being the initial point of compromise.
Yeah, user application hardening, it's going to relate to browsers, it's going to relate to Office products. Some quirky things we've seen when it comes to Office products, particular controls is file name mismatch, extension mismatch. TXT file that gets exported from some piece of software that's actually a Excel format. One of the controls, we've seen people renaming .txt files to .csv, and then things break and they can't open them. Often as well, teams and staff don't, and know that they should, don't understand that they're opening an older version of an Excel file, 97 workbook file. They're just doing their job, opening up and doing it, and all of a sudden things start to break. So when it comes to browsers, the guidelines for the ACSC are to implement ASD specific guidelines and settings. Where they don't exist, it's to use the vendor guidelines. Obviously, there's a lot of browsers out there, popular ones, Edge, Chrome, Firefox, each have their own separate and distinct grouping of settings when it comes to security controls. So there does become an inconsistency if you use multiple browsers in the environment. That something to be aware of. Make a call on whether you do a consistent approach and pick the most stricter, which is what we would normally recommend. Macros are a funny one. Everyone seems to think it's just finance teams or accounting teams that use macros. Excel is a very common tool that people that deal with mathematical problems and finance problems use macros to automate. But we've found it's used broader than that a lot of the times. We've seen it used just to format a Word document. So understanding who uses macros is sometimes a bit more arduous than just thinking it's one team. We've used programmatic controls to determine who's using macros within an environment. Before we go ahead, we can also certainly ask people, but oftentimes people won't know that they're using macros. They're invisible behind the scenes. If you want to run macros and you're approved to run macros, it has to be from these locations, and it can't be, for example, just off your desktop.